Rain clung to the boy like guilt. It soaked the threadbare hoodie that clung to his too thin frame and turned the cardboard beneath him into pulp. Orion had stopped feeling cold months ago, somewhere between the fifth broken tooth and the time a police officer threw his only blanket into a sewer grate. But he still felt the rain. It tickled and slithered like worms down the back of his neck. A rat skittered over his bare foot. He didn't flinch. He hadn't named them. He was no Disney princess. They just lived here, same as him. Greedy things. Hungry. He understood. The alley behind Capitol Plaza had once been a delivery lane. Now it was just a trash vein snaking between marble bones. The city above thrummed with tension. Helicopters muttered overhead. Sirens pulsed at random intervals like a dying heartbeat. Protesters had already been tear-gassed 3 blocks north. Soldiers in black stood like statues, rain sheening off their visors. In the dark of the alley, Orion leaned forward and pressed his forehead against the cracked bricks of the building wall. He peered up through a broken second-floor window. Inside, the lights were on. The suite above belonged to the president-elect. He'd learned that weeks ago when a cleaner tossed out a document bag with the seal still attached. And inside, he had seen her, the president's daughter, 16, blonde with sharp eyes and the kind of confidence that didn't come from approval, but survival. She didn't smile often. That made it more precious when she did. He never meant to stare. But when your day consists of digging through trash for calories and pretending not to hear what men whisper as they walk by, beauty becomes a kind of religion. From that window, she became his chapel. He watched her read, stretch, pace, dance, always at a distance. Never once did she see him. Or maybe she had. Once. A glance at the window. A moment too long. Orion's stomach growled, long and hollow like a warning. He tore a bite from half a bagel he'd pulled out of a security dumpster. It was green. He didn't care. The city was preparing for the inauguration. Flags whipped in the wind. Anti-riot drones clicked along rooftops like mechanical beetles. A giant screen played propaganda on loop. Peace, unity, a better future. But the soldiers had real bullets. The crowd had anger. It didn't matter to Orion. Politics had never saved him. Left, right, up, he just wanted a shower that didn't smell like rust. A bed. Maybe a bed next to her. He choked down a laugh at the thought. She was a princess. He was an alley ghost. Still, he watched her window. Still, he dreamed. The girl was gone from the window. Orion sat up, his thin spine crackling from the movement. He rubbed the muck from his eyes and adjusted his hood as the hum of the city grew louder, more focused. The president's motorcade had arrived. Even from the alley, he could hear the ceremonial brass over the rainfall, muffled but determined. He shuffled forward to the edge of the alley mouth and peeked around the corner. Security was tight. Crowds formed behind rows of electrified fencing. Drones buzzed just below the clouds. On a raised platform, half shrouded in digital banners, the president stood smiling, his arm raised in a wave. To his left she stood, the girl, clad in a sleek white coat, gloved, elegant, speaking softly to someone off mic. Her eyes scanned the crowd without fear. Orion's heart stuttered. She looked more radiant in person, not beautiful like models on TV. Real. She looked real. Then something shifted. He saw it. A man in the crowd, not with the rest, angled slightly off from the rest of the spectators. He wasn't watching the speech. His hands were tucked too deep into his coat. His eyes never moved. He was still. Orion's breath caught. He scanned the rooftops. No security noticed. No drone hovered above the man's head. The police nearby were talking to one another, not watching. Everyone was focused on the president. No one looked at the girl. No one except him. Orion took one step back into the alley, shaking. Then he turned and bolted. He ran toward the side barricade, where a pair of local cops stood near the edge of the stage's outer perimeter. They saw him coming and braced. "Hey! Hey!" he yelled, waving an arm. "You gotta check the guy in the brown coat. He's gonna, a baton cracked across his shoulder before the sentence finished. "Back it up," barked the taller officer, already shoving him backward. "You little shit, you drunk? Get out of here. This area's restricted. I saw something, please. He's gonna." "You think this is a game?" The second cop sneered, grabbing Orion by the collar and shoving him against a wall. "Get a job before you come preaching security threats. We've got enough psychos today." Rain blurred Orion's vision as he was flung back toward the alley. His hip hit the edge of a dumpster. His hand slid in something cold and wet. He looked up, breathing ragged. No one was going to help. He turned back toward the plaza. The president had stepped aside. The girl was moving to the podium now, alone, smiling. The man in the coat still hadn't moved.
Orion's feet hit pavement like a starting pistol had fired in his skull. He sprinted through a security gap left open by two guards focused on their comms. No one expected a charging, half-starved teenager from the shadows of a loading bay. No one saw him until he was already inside the crowd. Shoulders slammed into him, elbows knocked into his ribs. Shouts rose in protest. "Get out of the way!" But the noise fell behind him. There were 16 metal steps leading from the plaza to the stage. Orion counted each one as he ran, soaked and shaking. 1. A woman spilled coffee on her coat, screaming at him. 2. A boy tried to trip him, laughing until he saw Orion's face. 3. A drone swept low. He ducked. 4. A guard turned, but too late. 5. He saw her again. Up close now. Too close. 6. The man in the coat reached inside. 7. Orion screamed, but his voice drowned under the cheers. 8. She stepped forward to the microphone. 9. The glint of steel flashed under the coat. 10. Orion jumped the guardrail. 11. Hands reached to stop him. He slipped free. 12. The men drew the gun. 13. Orion sprinted across the final few meters of concrete. 14. The daughter's lips parted to speak. 15. The gun clicked. 16. He leapt. The shot rang out like a divine whip crack. The president's daughter gasped. So did the nation. A crimson bloom erupted across Orion's back as the force of the bullet threw him forward. His shoulder hit her ribs, driving her to the stage floor beneath him. Screams tore through the plaza. A second shot never came. The assassin tried to flee, but the chaos he'd hoped for turned on him. A soldier tackled him before the third step. Civilians screamed. Drones locked target. On the stage, the president was being rushed by his security. The girl struggled to sit up under the Orion's weight. Crying out, he was still breathing, just barely. Orion's face was slack, his breath shallow. Blood pooled under him in a spreading fan. She cradled his head in her lap, whispering his name, though he didn't yet know it. He looked up at her, with one eye barely open. "You're safe," he rasped. She couldn't answer. Her mouth trembled. "Did it matter?" he asked. "Did I matter?"
The plaza was a battlefield of confusion, but on the stage, time had slowed to silence. Cameras still rolled. Millions watching from home saw the blood on the marble platform, the body of a boy draped across the president's daughter. The girl held him, trembling. One hand pressed over the hole in his back as if she could stop death by will alone. "He's just a kid!" someone shouted. "He's just a kid!" Security agents surged in, surrounding the stage. The president pushed through them, forcing his way past his own guards. His voice cracked. "Moo, let me through!" Orion looked up, vision blurring, blinking against the rain and the blur of faces above him. "It's you," he whispered. The girl in the window. Her eyes widened. She touched his cheek, brushing dirt and blood with shaking fingers. You were watching me?" "Pretty," he mumbled, a weak smile on his cracked lips. "Thought you were an angel." She sobbed, clutching him tighter. "Don't die, please, please don't die, you saved me." "Wasn't supposed to," he coughed. "No one ever saw me." "You matter," she whispered. "You saved everything." The president knelt beside them, his hand on the boy's shoulder. "You saved my daughter. You stopped a war. You're a hero." Orion turned his face toward him slowly, eyelids heavy. "Really?" The The president nodded, choking back emotion. Your life meant everything, son. The moment crackled across every screen. Broadcasters fell silent. Commentators wept. On the floors of divided congressional halls, enemies clasped hands. Protesters outside the plaza dropped their signs. The nation, fractured and bloodied by years of hate, inhaled in unison. And then, for once, prayed. Every church bell rang. Imams and rabbis whispered blessings. Pagans burned incense. Atheists clenched their hearts. A boy with nothing had reminded them all what something looked like. Orion's eyes fluttered. He was smiling, genuinely smiling, for the first time in his short life. And then peacefully, he stopped breathing. The girl screamed. The president bowed his head. Rain continued to fall, now as if the sky itself mourned. Far above the earth, something stirred. Darkness passed without pain. The alley, the blood, the girl, all gone. Orion drifted in a womb of silence, cradled not by death, but by something older. There was no heaven, no hell, only a windless sky stretching forever behind his eyes. Then came air, wet, green, and wild. Then light, faint, filtered through ancient trees. Then pain again, but not his own. Hunger, need, the first breath of newborn lungs crying into a world that didn't know his name. A foxwoman heard the wailing before she saw the child. She stood on digitigrade legs, her paws caked in mud, a half-split deer carcass slung over one shoulder. Rain threaded through her long mane, cascading over her bare chest where thick red gold fur grew denser just beneath the collarbone, framing her breasts but never hiding them. Her mane, straight and damp, flowed over the curves of her torso, a natural veil born of years without shame. Ranari was a wild Therion. She had not worn clothes since casting off her command badge 15 years prior. She had left behind the military, the cities, and the noise of civilization when it became clear they no longer understood what they were. She heard the cry again. Her ears swiveled. Sharp, intent. It was not a beastling cub, no snarl in it, no yip, just raw, wet desperation. She followed the sound through vines and mist. There, curled beneath the roots of a wind-split tree, was a child, hairless save for the dark scruff atop his head. He cried in choking gasps, mouth wide, tiny limbs flailing like a prey thing. He had no fur to protect him, no scent of kin, no trail, no markings of birth, just a small bundle of misplaced life. Renari's lip curled. Aetherian, she muttered. The word tasted like rust. He should not have been here. The borders had been watched. The war front lay east. This close to her forest was too bold even for the fools in the capital. Or perhaps this was something else, an offering. A trap. She stepped closer. The baby squirmed at the sound of her claws on the roots. His eyes opened, blue, startlingly so. He looked at her with no fear. She crouched beside him, knees spread, her tail arcing lazily behind her in balance. He reached toward her. Renari hesitated. There was no reason to keep him alive. If the humans had left him, it was likely to bait sympathy or cause instability. If the gods had sent him, well, gods played cruel games. Her claws flexed. She lifted him in one arm, cradling him against the warmth of her chest as if to weigh his worth before deciding. Then it happened. Instinctively, blindly, the child pressed his face against her and began to suckle. She froze, not in alarm, but in still, raw shock. He suckled without hesitation, as if he'd known her scent from birth, as if the fur that covered her skin meant nothing, as if she was mother and nothing else. His tiny hand pawed gently at the fluff beneath her breast, curling into it. He made no sound now, just fed, satisfied and calm, eyes barely open. Her heart beat once, painfully. He didn't care about her fur, her teeth, her scent. He accepted her without fear, judgment, or hesitation. Why, she whispered. It wasn't a question to him. It was a question to herself. She could not kill him now. She would not. He was not Aetherian. Not anymore. He would be raised as Therian, or he would be raised wild, but he would not die here like refuse. She looked toward the moons, one full, one waning, and lowered her muzzle to nuzzle the child's temple. You are Kale, she whispered, softly but with finality. And now you are mine.